Today we are going to start the first lecture of morphology and syntax by identifying the definition of a morpheme. Morphology is the science that studies morphemes. So what is a morpheme after all? A morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. Consider the word smallest. So nothing is smaller than the morpheme in language. But what about phoneme? Remember the word phoneme? Phoneme means sound. The sound is the smallest unit of a language. So, how is that? A morpheme is the smallest unit and the phoneme is the smallest unit. Well, you have to complete the definition to know the difference between them. The phoneme is the smallest unit of a language, but the morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. This is the difference. The difference is that the morpheme has a meaning, but the phoneme doesn't have a meaning. So this is the difference between them. Both of them are the smallest units of language, but the morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. So to say that this unit is a morpheme, we have to consider that this unit has a meaning. Otherwise, it is not a morpheme. So this is the condition. The condition is that the morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. Then, in order to give more details about the morphemes, in order to be more familiar with the morphemes meet three criteria. The first one is that it is a word or a part of a word that has meaning. Again, that has meaning. So, the most important condition to identify a morpheme is that it should have a meaning. Otherwise, it is not a morpheme. The first criteria says that the morpheme can be a word or a part of a word, but it should have a meaning. Let's consider some examples. The word play. Play is a word that consists of only one morpheme. Nothing attached to play, just play. So it consists of one morpheme, and at the same time, it is a word, not a part of a word. It is a word by itself. So it consists of only one morpheme, and it is a word by itself. If we take another word like player, player here consists of two morphemes, play plus er. Play here is part of a word. The word is player, and play is part of the word player. Er is part of the word player. And both of them have meanings. Play has a meaning, and er has a meaning. So the word player consists of two morphemes, and each one is a part of the word player. Play is a part of the word player, and er is a part of the word player. Each one has meaning. Let's consider the word players. We have a play plus er plus s. So we have three morphemes. Each one of these three morphemes has meaning. Play has a meaning, er has a meaning, and s has a meaning. S is the plural s, so it has the meaning of plurality. So we have three morphemes. Play here is part of a word players. Er is part of the word players, and s is part of the word players. So each one of them is called a morpheme because it has a meaning and it is part of the word players. Light. Light is a word that consists of only one morpheme, and it has meaning. So it is a morpheme because it has meaning, and at the same time it is a word by itself. It is not part of a word, it is a word by itself. Unenlivened. This word consists of 5 morphemes: un plus n plus live plus n plus ed. So we have 5 morphemes. If we consider each one of these 5 morphemes, we will notice that each one of them has a meaning. And each one of them is part of the word unenlivened. Live, for example, is not a word by itself in this word. It is part of a word. It is a morpheme that is part of the word unenlivened. The first un is a morpheme, and it is part of the word unenlivened, and it has meaning. It has the meaning of not. Ed, for example, the last one, also it has the meaning of past tense. So each one of them, on, in, live, in, and ed, is a morpheme, and it is part of a word, and each one of them has meaning. The second criterion according to which a morpheme can be identified is that a morpheme cannot be divided into smaller meaningful parts without changing its meaning or leaving a meaningless part. Simply speaking, a morpheme cannot be divided in 2 parts. A morpheme cannot be divided in 2 parts. A word can be divided into morphemes, but the morpheme cannot be divided in 2 parts, because remember that the morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. The smallest meaningful unit. It means we cannot divide it further in 2 parts. So, the morpheme cannot be divided in 2 parts. The reason behind that, the result of this division would be a meaningless part or a part that is meaningful, but its meaning is different from the morpheme itself. So the result will be a meaningless part and a part that is going to be different from the meaning of the morpheme itself. Let's take examples. The word bright. Bright means shining. This word consists of 1 morpheme only. I want to prove according to the second criterion that this word consists of 1 morpheme only. I can assume that this word consists of 2 parts, be and right. If I say so, the word consists of 2 parts, be and right. Be is a meaningless part. It doesn't have meaning. Be. Right is a meaningful part, but its meaning is different from the word bright. Bright means shining. Right means correct. So we have difference in meaning, violation in meaning. The meanings are not related to each other, which means that dividing the word bright into 2 parts is a mistake. And it means that the word bright is 1 morpheme because it cannot be divided into 2 parts. The result of which would be a meaningless part and a meaningful part with a change in meaning. So the word bright consists of one morpheme only. Let's take another word, brighten. Brighten consists of two morphemes, bright and en. If we divide the word brighten into bright and en, you will notice that bright is a meaningful part. En is also a meaningful part. Bright means shining, and brighten means to shine. En means to make. So, brighten means to make shine, to make it shine, to make something shine, to make something bright. So both parts are related in meaning to the word brighten. That is why brighten can be divided into two parts, which means that brighten consists of two morphemes, bright plus en. That is why we can divide this word into two parts, because it has two morphemes, bright and en. Let's take another example, address. Address is a word that consists of one morpheme only. But let's prove that by applying the second criterion. If we assume that address consists of two parts, add, add, and res, R-E-S-S. So, if we assume that this word consists of these two parts, add and res. Okay, the first part is add. Add is a meaningful part. It has meaning. It means gather, collect. But the meaning of address is something else. It means location, for example. So there is a change in meaning. There is a difference in meaning between address and add. Add means something and address means something else. What about the second part, res? Res is a meaningless part. Res is a meaningless part. So notice that in dividing the word address into add and res, first of all, we have a meaningless part, that is res. And second of all, we have the part that is meaningful, which is add. But its meaning is not related to the meaning of address. And this leads us to think about address as one morpheme. That is why it cannot be divided into two parts, because once you divide the word address into two parts, you will have this result, a meaningless part and a meaningful part with a meaning that is not related to the word address at all. So the word address is a word that consists of one morpheme only. The third criterion of identifying and defining a morpheme says that a morpheme has a relatively stable meaning in different verbal environments. Stable meaning means fixed meaning. It means that a morpheme keeps and retains its meaning in all of the words that contain it. So the morpheme does not change its meaning. It has the same meaning in all of the words that contain this morpheme. Let's take examples. the morpheme ER. ER is a morpheme that has the meaning of comparison, and this morpheme is usually attached to adjectives to make a degree of comparison. So it has the meaning of comparison. In cheaper, sooner, simpler, greater, cuter, etc. In all of these adjectives, ER has the meaning of comparison. So this is what is meant by saying that a morpheme has a stable meaning in different verbal environments. So when the ER is attached to adjectives, it will have this meaning, the meaning of comparison. Let's take another example, like simple. Simple is a morpheme and it is a word at the same time. Simple has meaning, of course. It has the meaning like easy, plain, clear, etc. So in simplicity, it has the same meaning. In simplification, it has the same meaning. If I say simpler, it has the same meaning, simple. So simple in all of these words has the same meaning. Let's take another morpheme. The morpheme re. Reactivate, re-enter, redefine, reconsider. Re, here, it has a meaning. It means again. Like activate again, enter again, define again, consider again. So when I put re before these verbs and some other verbs, it means again. So notice that re has the same meaning in all of the words that contain it. Another example is m. M. When m comes before adjectives, and certainly there are conditions for using m. We do not use it haphazardly in language. However, when it is used before some adjectives, it has the meaning of not. So when I say impossible, it means not possible. Impolite, not polite. Immature, not mature. So notice that im has the same meaning when it comes before some adjectives. So accordingly, we conclude that a morpheme can be identified and defined according to 3 criteria. The first one is that it can be a word or part of a word that has meaning. And second, a morpheme cannot be divided in 2 parts. Otherwise, we will have a meaningless part or a part that is meaningful, but its meaning is different from the morpheme itself. And the third criterion is that a morpheme has a stable meaning, has a fixed meaning in all of the words that contain this morpheme.